I'm watching this video, sunshine, exclamation point, plus silver does not equal Argyria, period, two different sentences, on my channel, Dr. Otto Becker, MD, how to turn on the body's regenerative capacity, or whatever the title is. I can't read the whole thing at the moment. I think I've only listened to it 10 minutes into the 26-minute video so far, and boy do I ramble. But I think I understand what I'm getting to, at least in terms of what I know now. Maybe I was supposing something, I was presuming something, I think, and I should at least try to expand on it, correct it, or make it more accurate. What I think is happening is that the sunlight is giving the body energy, and the body is acting like a capacitor, especially since it contains silver. You know, if it contains silver, it's acting like a capacitor because it has like these plates, because it's got silver. Now the silver doesn't plate out unless the sunlight hits the body and gives you Argyria. Then the silver forms a plate. So actually, I'm not sure. I think what it does is it simply represents that the body is storing up energy by going through a chemical response to the sunlight. And what that would imply is that when silver is oxidized, highly oxidized, you know, because hydrogen peroxide will do that, either by the physiology or ahead in advance of absorption of silver, such that the silver becomes a metabolite, it becomes an electron deficient carrier. It's electron deficient because it's only in the sunlight that the photoelectric effect, which is a transference of electrical energy in the form of photons to the oxidized silver, takes away the oxidized state by reducing the silver, but because of the transference of the electrons via, normally chemically you'd have a transfer of electrons via a hydrogen ion acting as the electron carrier, but in this case you're using a photon from the sun, the sunlight, acting as the electron carrier, and it reduces the silver back to its metallic state, in which the silver becomes conductible, and capable of polarizing a charge. Apparently when it's oxidized it can't, because when you have an oxidized metal like iron oxide or something, you actually have a resistor, and I think the capacity for a one-way resistor in the form of a diode, because that's how cat whisker diodes are created for a what do you call it, a crystal battery, you know, a very simple battery. I'm sorry, my phone is I hate it when people send me messages. You might have heard that buzz. I will ignore it. That's what I get for using my cell phone as a camera. So what I think what I'm doing is I'm indicating that sunshine is transferring an electric charge to the silver in the body, causing the body to behave like a capacitor, because it's indicating capacitance in as much as the oxidized silver is being reduced to metallic silver, giving the person Argyria. So I'm going to have to change the title on that video and make it more accurate. That's what I'm going to have to do. And then attach this video as an end, what do they call it? I don't know if I can find the end screen and annotations. It's a good feature they've stuck into YouTube videos as an option. You can put a link in the end of your video directly linking to some other video. Before they called it something else. They just called it annotations. Now they call it end screen and annotations, which means it automatically defaults to put it towards the end of the video, which is a good idea. What's the point of having a link inside the video itself at the beginning of the video when you want a link at the end? But I'm going to put it at this 10-minute point is what I'm going to do, because this is when I start getting a little antsy, like, come on, get to the point already. And I think that's the point I was going to get to. So sunshine merely indicates a transference of electric charge from the sun to the body when it induces argyria. But, so the title is wrong. Does not equal argyria? No. Sunshine plus silver indicates a transference of electric charge, which results in argyria. That's what I should have said, because I think that's what I was intending to say, whether or not I actually said it in this video. So I'll listen some more and see if I do. But I think that's what I had in mind when I made this video. Or I should have had in mind, put it that way. Okay, I better listen to some more of the video. It's silly how I'm mixing and confusing things up in this video. I'm mixing up sunshine with high voltage static field. Sunshine is actually equivalent to current amplitude, because you're transferring electric charge from the sun via the sunlight to the body, and you're reducing the oxidized silver in the course of doing so, because it acquires that charge, that electric charge, which causes the silver to reduce, chemically reduce, out of its oxidized state and into its simpler metallic state, and thus give the body argyria. So I'm mixing things up. That's the problem. Because when I talk about the sleep circuit in this video, the sleep circuit is a voltage-oriented circuit of moderate voltage and suppressed amperage. So there's no current transfer. It's all about voltage polarization. And that eliminates argyria more or less in a general sense across the physiology and helps prevent it. Because, why? That's a good point. Let me think about that. Well, I don't know why. My guess, though, is that it has no impact whatsoever on the silver. The impact is on improving the oxidative aspect to metabolism, so that the body can oxidize the silver and prevent its reduction. Now, the reduction won't happen if there's no amperage in the circuit, because you have to have amperage to transfer charge. Okay? Voltage doesn't transfer charge. It merely moves charges around within the charged field, the electrostatically charged field. The sun is not imparting, is not creating a charged field. It's imparting a charge across a non-charged field to another location. That's what amperage means. The transference of current is the transference of charge. But in order to perform electrostatic charge, you have to immerse the target within your electrostatic field in order for it to become part of the electrostatically charged field. So there's no transference. And this is why I've always made an analogy between electrostatics and longitudinal waves, because a longitudinal wave happens within its field and doesn't happen outside of it. If it has to leave its field and go to outside its charged field, it has to turn into a transverse wave. And the perfect example of that is Newton's cradle. You know, you have these balls and they swing back and forth, and you've got a line of them, maybe 5 balls, and you just pick up 2, and they're poised on strings across 2 bars, 2 strings, one attached to each bar. And you pick up 2 balls and you drop them, and then 2 balls shoot out the opposite end, but your your 5th ball in the middle, doesn't move. That shows longitudinal shock wave. That's why I like to call it a shock wave, because it's a compression wave that moves through the middle ball, and it stands still. But the 2 end balls on either side, they turn that longitudinal shock wave energy into a transverse movement energy, kinetic energy that we're familiar with, and the balls move. The 2 balls on either end move up and down alternately. So kinetic energy is transverse energy. while longitudinal energy is a shock wave, in which you have dominoes stacked tightly compressed together, and so that they can't move, yet the shock wave energy passes through them. But if you space the dominoes apart, you see them move in a wave-like action. That's transverse, when the dominoes are separated. But when they're compacted, you have an electrostatic charged state in which the whole array of dominoes are acting as a single block. They become a singularity. And that's what a longitudinal wave means, is a shock wave traveling through the interior of a singularity. While a transverse wave is a transference of energy across empty space that's gapped space just right between multiple singularities so that they can carry the charge. And that's what current in a wire represents, because you've got atoms separated by space, copper atoms within the copper wire. How is it that, well, we say it jumps from electron shell to electron shell, between the electron shell of one copper atom to the electron shell of the next. But they're still spaced. They got empty space, tons of empty space between the nucleus of each copper atom. So that's what we say. But so I guess if we take it further, what we say is that the electron orbital shell is a representation of kinetic transverse energy. And if you compact them enough, sufficiently, then the only way the energy can pass, it ain't going to pass between the electron shells anymore. The only way is as a compression wave between the nuclei of adjoining copper atoms, because you get them close enough spaced. And then that becomes a longitudinal wave. So how does this apply? Well, it applies because when you have an electrostatic field, when you have germinating seeds, that's what I'm quoting here in this video, germinating seeds in an electrostatic field, it wakes up the primeval genetic code and bypasses any GMO code, genetic engineering modified code of the current era within the code, the latest DNA code, the current DNA code. But that's an electrostatic field. The seeds have to be in the electrostatic field. But sunshine, you're not in the electrostatic field. It's transferring via sunshine, which is acting like current in a wire. It's transferring the charge from the sun to the body. And thus you get Argyria. So, what I should really be calling the title here is that an electrostatic field cures us of Argyria, while an electromagnetic current gives us Argyria. So amperage gives us Argyria because it reduces oxidized silver to its metallic state if it is not reduced already. Because you can give yourself Argyria with metallic silver, but I can give it to myself by giving myself oxidized silver and then stepping out into the sunshine, which now completes a circuit in which I pass current to my body in the form of sunshine, and that reduces the oxidized silver in my body to its reduced metallic state, and thus gives me Argyria. So when we talk about this, we have to include electromagnetic versus electrostatics in our definition of redox. We have to expand the definition of redox to include electromagnetics and electrostatics, and thus this confusing video gets straightened out. It's just a more expanded view of redox in electrochemistry, oxidation reduction. I don't know why we don't say reduction oxidation, because it goes redox, not ox-re. Ox-red. Ox-red. No, we say red-ox instead of ox-red. Okay, whatever. We do all kinds of things backwards. So that's really what this video is about. It's about confusion. A confusion over redox. And so that's what I'm trying to clarify, is to expand the definition of redox as it applies to Argyria. So I hope that clarifies things. I'm going to continue listening to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm up to the 12-minute mark now. I'm going to keep listening. At 12 minutes and 20 seconds into this video, I'm saying, oh, don't do the old school of my suppressed amperage mild voltage circuit, sleep circuit. Do the sunshine. But see, I'm mixing things up. The sleep circuit will actually get rid of argyria, generally speaking, in the body and prevent it, but sunshine will give it to you. So I'm mixing things up. Now the commenter, the YouTube commenter that brought on this whole business of me rewatching the video, thank you very much, because it's helping me to clarify this video with expanded version of REDOX. What she brings up, she had 3 posts, and apparently she deleted 2 of them in favor of retaining only 1. And the one she retained was, she asked, well, where's this circuit I can get a hold of, this sleep circuit that you talk about? Well, I made it based on Becker's research in his book. So you get his book, and in chapter 7 or 8, 7, in chapter 7, he gives you the basics. He tells you the resistor that he used was between 1 and 100 megaohms. He preferred 10 megaohms. Between the 2 ends of a piece of 2 wires that he soldered together, and he found out it was too much amperage, and the 2 pieces of wire was platinum wire and silver wire. Well, if you look up the electronegativity of the 2, it's very similar to a dry cell battery that we buy in the supermarket or in the hardware store. So I simply took a dry cell battery and took a 10 mega ohm resistor, put them in series, and I had myself the foundation of chapter 7 of his book, The Body Electric. And that's not my sleep circuit, because I use a much higher resistance. I use in the realm of gigaohms, not megaohms, to further reduce the amperage down to picoamps in order to sleep with it all night long. But when I was treating a thumb for a very deep gash wound, I wanted to use something as close to what Becker had used in chapter 7, and that was 10 megaohm resistance on a AA battery, a single AA battery from the supermarket, a 1.5 volt AA battery. And that gave me characteristics that were very close to Becker's 2 pieces of wire soldered together, his platinum wire and his silver wire. And he put the, because it created its own galvanic response, it created its own battery. And he put it, let's see if I can remember, because I think it was backwards. He put the platinum end in the bone. He sliced off, he amputated the limb of a lab rat, let's say it's a lab rat, and he put the platinum end inserted into the bone marrow of the amputation stump, and the silver end he attached further up, let's say it was a thigh, further up the stump of the thigh, closer to the hip joint, and attached it surgically to the underside of the skin. I believe it was, backwards. So he never got in chapter 7, he never stumbled across, like he does in chapter 8, the antibacterial benefit of putting silver at both ends and just putting a circuit in there instead of merely a resistor that will generate the necessary amperage and voltage characteristics that he's shooting for. But this did it because he had to get the polarity right. Right, the platinum was negative and the silver was positive with respect to each other. There were 2 different voltage electronegative. There were 2 different voltage potentials. When you look up the electronegativity of silver and platinum, and you subtract one from the other, you end up with not only which is positive and which is negative, the polarity, but the difference between them. And the difference between them is very similar to a dry cell battery. But the polarity was what he was looking at for. And so he was able to put negative inside the bone marrow and positive up the thigh on the underside of the skin. And it was the negative charge in the bone marrow that stimulated acceleration of stem cell production so that the bone could create a stump and heal a growth stump, biostema, I think it's called. It's a mass of either stem cells or proto-stem cells. And it grows in the direction that it needs to grow. It doesn't grow any which way, and it creates a legitimate replacement. There's no different than the original, except you have to do a microscopic slice analysis to see that it's actually younger. It has less collagen and more proto-stem cells. That's where the proto comes in. He called a certain term. I can't remember what it's called. maybe it's blastema cells, I don't know, but it is a certain technical term. So I just call it proto-stem cells, the precursors to stem cells. It has more of them, showing that the replacement limb is younger than the limb that it replaced. So that was where this circuit comes from. It comes from Chapter 7 of Dr. Robert O. Becker's book, The Body Electric. Not his other book, or other books, but the one that has to do with the body electric, his research on regeneration. And I simply, for extensive use, I just used higher resistance, the same AA battery, but higher resistance. So I got around 60 resistors, quarter-watt rated resistors on eBay. I bought 100 of them for $20, and they're 100 megaohms each, and I got 60 of them in series to create 6.6 gigaohms, I believe, of resistance, to create around 227 some odd picoamps of current, which is what his original research talks about. I believe it's in Chapter 7, if it's not in another chapter, maybe Chapter 6, in which he broke the limb, the forearm of a salamander, and got this very expensive piece of equipment to measure the magnetic field, and then inferred the current that created that magnetic field to be in the range between 200 and 700 picoamps, 500 picoamps average. But he never used it in Chapter 7 of his book, or Chapter 7, so it might have been Chapter 6, or the beginning of Chapter 7. He never used it. Yeah, I think it was the beginning of Chapter 7. He used nanoamps, or he even went as high as 2 or 3 microamps. I mean, in his patent. And you can download his patent. I made a shortcut, tinyurl.com/Becker-patent. But Chapter 7 of his book is where you learn about the circuits that he used. And he talks about elsewhere he ended up using AC circuits, because then he could really monkey with the voltage and amperage to a much easier degree. Because, then you use a, what do you call these things? Transformer to step up or step down the voltage, step up or step down the amperage. And then you can use a full bridge rectifier to rectify the AC into DC, more or less. Or you can use a more complicated circuitry to really smooth out the DC. Because it'll be kind of a bumpy, kind of a wavy DC if you just use a simple full bridge rectifier, which is 4 diodes arranged a certain way. But that comes later in some other chapter of the book. But in Chapter 7, so to answer your question, Chapter 7 of Dr. Robert O. Becker's book, The Body Electric, that's where I get the sleep circuit from, that I made mine from. But a simple AA battery and a 10 mega ohm resistor will pretty much duplicate what he does in Chapter 7 of his book. Not complicated, not expensive. Quarter watt, you get a resistor that's rated for quarter watts, because you're going to be way lower than quarter watts, so that's okay. In other words, you won't burn up the resistor. Yeah, so that answers that part of that answers your question. Maybe I should try to answer your other questions. Oh, well, I'll put the link in the description of this video. Aaron Murakami, when he talks about the Primeval Code in electrostatic field, it's emediapress.com/2016/11/13/Primeval-code/. So eMedia Press, that's E as in Edward, media as in the media, TV, radio, media, and press.com. So it's electronic media, E as in electronic, emediapress.com/2016/11/03/Primeval, as in dinosaur, Primeval-code/. And that takes you to his page on this weird anomaly. Anyway, so I continue watching the video to see if there's any more corrections I have to make to it. Okay, it's 16 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm saying, get sunshine, don't avoid it, and that'll charge the body. I don't know what I was thinking. it doesn't charge the body. It currents the body. Because charging, electrostatic charging, is not taking place when we get sunshine. Some sort of current phenomenon is occurring, or else the silver... Oh. Huh? Oh my God. Oh, you know what? It is charging. It's the reverse charge. Oh my God. Holy crap. This is important. I'm sorry, I started eating. I'm so hungry. Ozone has the opposite charge to hydrogen peroxide, and that's why I don't use ozone, because it won't do any good. Silver needs a negative charge imparted to it from the hydrogen peroxide in order to create a peroxide of silver. But ozone would be the opposite, and I bet ozone would reduce silver hydroperoxide to its reduced state, its metallic silver state, and thus give argyria. So essentially, sunlight is creating ozone. You know what? That's exactly what happens in the stratosphere, I believe, or is it the ionosphere? When sunlight first hits the very first molecules of air, it creates ozone, and so we get an ozone covering our planet, and a layer of ozone, because sunshine creates it. See? So that's why I'm so confused. So it's not current, it's voltage. I mean, current is transferring the voltage, but the voltage in question, and I never bothered to consider this possibility, has to do with which polarity. Because apparently when we're reducing metal ions, it's always the same voltage charge that's performing the reduction away from the oxidized state. So we're charging silver with a negative charge to make it oxidized, but we're charging it with a positive charge to reduce an oxidized silver, which will then give us argyria. Now, the silly thing in electrical theory is we say the electric charge goes one way, the electron flow goes one way, but the current goes the other way. And that's because the physicists back in the 1800s or whatever it was, when they made their first theories on physics, they got the charge backwards. They named the proton for a reason, to indicate a positive charge. Was that it? No, they named the electron. Wait a minute. They named the electron the choice of nomenclature based on a yang versus not yin but a yang, a dynamic, because the electron was dynamic. But they thought it was positively charged, and then they realized, oops, they got it backwards, it's negatively charged. And they never corrected. This was 50 years into the existence of this erroneous physics theory. They never bothered to correct it even then. So it's too late. Well, now we got backwards charges. So when you talk about electrical theory, you say the current goes one way, and when you look at the diode, it's marked on one side to indicate current flowing that way, but electric charge is flowing the opposite way. So see how confusing this is? So, sunshine is not imparting electrons. Excuse me for assuming that photons are a carrier of electrons, because they can't be. Not the way this is working out. Hydrogen ion is a carrier of electrons, electron carrier, electric charge. But current is moving in the opposite direction. So that means sunshine is carrying a positive charge. Because it's not carrying... It's carrying electron holes, is the way they like to put it. Well, it's not carrying electrons, because that would be... You know, when they talk about NPN or PNP... transistors. Okay? So when you're talking about transistors, you know, one of them has the holes, the electron holes, and the other has the charged electrons. So that's what we're dealing with here. In order to explain what's going on, is that an electron carrier, such as hydrogen, is not a hole. It's an electron carrier. It's got an electric charge of negative. But sunshine, a photon, is carrying an electron hole, which means it's positive. And so it hits up against the body, deoxidizes the oxidized silver in the body that's, in solution or whatever, or it's maybe it's a silver salt and becomes a silver ion, whatever. It becomes a silver ion in solution and and charges it with a positive charge, taking away its negative charge. And so the negative charge that this silver ion got from, let's say, a chloride ion, shared to it from a chloride ion, gets stolen by the photon electron hole, the electron hole of the photon, and turns the silver ion back into silver metal because it no longer has that negative charge. It was stolen by the photon. So that's why, both in the case of peroxide or oxide of silver, as well as in the case of silver ions in general, even created not by hydrogen peroxide, but created by, let's say, a silver salt, silver chloride, silver nitrate maybe is a better example. Even those are turned into their non-ionic state because the negative charge is stolen by sunlight. So when we're getting sunshine, we're getting a charge, but it's not a negative charge, it's a positive charge. And when we take a bath in hydrogen peroxide, we're getting a negative charge transferred to the body. If we were to take a bath in ozonated water, we would be imparting a positive charge to the body, and technically, theoretically, we should be giving ourselves argyria if we're loaded with ionic silver. So ozone, what is it, Europe and Jerusalem, I think they have ozonated tap water. You'll give yourself argyria. Cool. That's one way to suppress excessive use of silver. In European countries and Israel, I guess countries surrounding the Mediterranean area, basically. So here we got a really expanded version in which not only have we covered electrostatic versus electromagnetic, and we've already covered reduction versus oxidation, but now we've got electron carriers versus electron holes, which is the whole foundation for, what are those things called again? Transistors. It's something I never understood. What? Well, it's just theory. It's their way of explaining how a transistor works. They had to come up with a theory, so that was the theory. It's fine. I'll use it because I don't know what else to use. So I'm up to 16 minutes and 30 seconds in my 26-minute, 8-second video here. Sunshine, but I'm going to change the title, so it's not going to do you any good. So what's going to be the new title? Let me see. I got to come up with a better title because now, I got to come up with a better title. Let me see if I can come up with a title. Okay, the new title for this video, because I have to keep it under 100 characters, is Sunshine Equals Reduction and Electron Theft, period. It's two sentences. The title is two sentences. The second sentence is Oxidation equals Oxidation and Electron Donation. Well, that's two. I'm doubling the use of the word oxidation. Let me see about this. Wait a minute. Well, the best title I can come up with, put my glasses on so I can see it. These are pinhole glasses, by the way. Sunshine is reduction and electron theft versus electron donor oxidation via hydrogen peroxide. And then, if you need more help, I'll put some stuff in the description. Oh yeah, it's about redox. Oh yeah, okay. Well, at 18 minutes and 18 seconds, I'm saying that sunburn exhibits, or we can infer, it implies oxidation of the skin. Well, wait a minute. I deoxidized the silver by reducing it. So how can we say that the skin is being oxidized? Quite the opposite. The photon, if anything, is being oxidized, and at the expense of the flesh. Maybe that's it. Maybe the skin is being oxidized at the expense of the silver. So we're transferring charge from the... See, but wait a minute. We're forcibly transferring charge, the negative charge from the... See, how did the silver hydroperoxide get absorbed? Excuse me, dissolved in water in the first place, so that it could be absorbed by the skin. There must have been a transference of charge that occurred among the molecules of water and the molecules of silver hydroperoxide, because if there's too much silver hydroperoxide in the water, or too much hardness, tap water hardness, then some of this silver hydroperoxide comes out of solution and precipitates as a cloudy, milky white precipitate that it's very fine, and so it remains suspended in the water, but it can sink, and when it layers itself on top of itself, it'll automatically self-induce reduction and turning back into metallic silver. So I have to wonder. Oh, but it stays oxidized then, even when it's an ion, when it dissolves in water. So it doesn't lose its oxidative potential as a hydroperoxide of silver just because it dissolves in water. So it retains its negative charge as if it were an ion of silver, but it has no chloride ion to or nitrate ion to complement itself with. Yet somehow, because of its oxidated state, it retains the negative charge of the hydrogen peroxide. Unless the hydrogen peroxide lost its negative charge when it lost its hydrogen atom, that was then replaced by the silver atom, because hydrogen peroxide fizzes when it reacts with especially nano-sized particles of silver. It's very effervescent. So yeah, that's when we lost our negative charge. So silver hydroperoxide is not negatively charged because it lost its negative charge. Some of it. It didn't lose all, or else it would have lost all of its hydrogen and become, if it was a calcium ion and dry, it would become calcium peroxide. But it's not. It's in the liquid state. Well, no, because the valence of calcium is 2, and so it bumps off 2 hydrogen atoms off the water, off the hydrogen peroxide molecule. But since silver is a valence of 1, it bumps off only 1 hydrogen ion and takes 1 electron with it, leaving behind 1 hydrogen and 1 electron to go with it. So we've reduced the negative charge of hydrogen peroxide by its reaction with silver. It makes sense that the hydrogen peroxide gets reduced while the silver gets oxidized because there's a transference. Okay? So when anything gets reduced, it loses, apparently it loses negative charge. So that means that any oxide of silver in the body has a negative charge, just as if it were an anion of a silver salt dissolved in solution. I thought sodium, for instance, was positively charged by itself. Wait a minute. Oh, I'm getting things mixed up. But it attracts a negative charged ion to itself. So oxidized silver is positive, but it attracts negative charges? So that means that silver hydroperoxide is an electrostatic substance that wants to absorb negative charges from its environment. And by way of electromagnetic repulsion,
keep away positive charges, because it's already positively charged, which means it's as bad as taking an oxidant like chlorine. Right, exactly. You know, we think of antioxidants, but an oxidant is something that's already got a positive potential to it. Wow, this is so confusing. It's getting me so confused and upside down and backwards, inverted. I don't know what I'm saying or thinking anymore. I thought ozone was positively charged. Boy. But no, it can't be, because hydrogen peroxide can give up 2 hydrogen ions, which represents 2 electrons, 2 negative charges. So hydrogen peroxide itself is negative, but transfers that. No, it loses. It loses its negative charge and becomes more positive. But it's still negative, though, in order to take on silver. And the silver, does the silver acquire? No, because the hydrogen left, so the silver doesn't acquire the charge. Good grief, this is so confusing. So to keep the silver soluble, the blood, the body fluids, are rendered negative due to the presence of the stable hydrogen peroxide that has been stabilized by silver, metallic silver. So the sunshine, having a photon, which is an electron hole, absorbs the negative charges of the body. That must be why sunbathing is so relaxing, because a negative charge makes you feel dynamic. You want to get up and do things. And that's why somebody who stays indoors all the time and never gets any sunlight is always busybody. You know, busy, busy, busy. While the sunbather is just cool, chilling out, just, you know, laying in the sun. But unfortunately, that's counterproductive to a physiology that's heavily laden with silver ions, because it will give you argyria by reducing the negative charge, the overall negative charge of the body fluids, because it's the body fluids that have to maintain a very highly negatively charged state in order to render the silver oxidized and or dissolvable, so that it can be ionic. And when we take away that negative charge, the silver goes back to its positive. Well, it reduces its negative charge and goes back to its metallic state and gives us argyria. So it's a question of charging up the body with a negative charge, and that's what hydrogen peroxide represents, the association between its negative charge and the silver, because now it becomes an associated molecule once the hydrogen peroxide loses one of its hydrogen atoms, so that it can bind loosely or not so loosely, as the case may be, with a silver ion, with a silver atom, effectively turning that silver atom into a silver ion, because it's now been oxidized. The silver has been oxidized, and the hydrogen peroxide has been reduced. So I hope that straightened things up. I forgot what I started this particular segment in this video, that I turned on my camera to try and elucidate. I forgot already. Whatever it was. I'll just have to go back and listen to it myself. Now I see. Restarting the video. It has to do with sunburns. What is a sunburn? Is it oxidation or is it reduction? And it's oxidation of the skin, which transfers charge out of the ionic silver, whether it's oxidized, whether the body fluids have sufficient oxidation or not, thus reducing the silver to its metallic state and imparting oxidation to the flesh, which of course burns it. So that's what a sunburn represents. And that makes kind of sense, but only because it's the opposite of what's happening to the silver. The flesh gets oxidized at the expense of the silver. So when I take a bath in silver hydroperoxide, I'm reducing the body fluid at the expense of oxidizing the silver, because I'm adding hydroperoxide, not hydrogen peroxide. In other words, hydrogen peroxide minus one hydrogen ion, which reduces the body fluid. right? We reduced the hydrogen peroxide in order to oxidize the silver, in order to make silver hydroperoxide, because we lost one hydrogen atom. Well, we're doing the same thing to the body fluid overall by diluting it down, because it contains water and a certain quantity of oxidation via the red blood cells, and hydrogen peroxide formed by the white blood cells. So between the white and the red blood cells, we have a certain the body fluid, or the blood, is carrying a certain amount of oxygen, which can oxidize something else. And the hemoglobin is oxidized. Come on, it's iron, it's oxidized. That's why it's red. But when we add silver hydroperoxide, we're reducing the bodies, yet we're adding oxygen, due to the fact that it's hydrogen peroxide minus one hydrogen ion, not one, or hydrogen atom, not one oxygen atom. So we're actually adding oxygen, despite the fact that we're reducing the body fluid. Does any of that make any sense to any of you guys? Oh boy, chemistry can be complicated because electricity is involved.
In deference to what I say at 19 minutes and 29 seconds into the video, I actually have gone back to avoiding sunlight because I have no interest in developing a tan and having to deal with argyria as a temporary condition of trying to tan myself, because I'm going to be bleaching myself with silver hydroperoxide baths with MSM to get rid of the argyria, and avoiding sunlight to give it a chance to, because it takes several baths to do that, and I don't take a bath every day. I skip a few days. So, nice idea. I was thinking of, I'll prove everybody wrong. Sunshine does not equal argyria. Well, that was the title, the original title. I'm going to change it now. Sunshine, ! Plus silver does not equal argyria, period. Wrong. So, there you go. At around 20 minutes, I'm making the illusion that the loose equivalence between the Primeval Code of that link that Aaron Murakami shared with us, the ancient genetic code that electrostatic field wakes up, equated with silver hydroperoxide, I believe, and there might be a loose connection in a mild sense. Because I feel that my body has gone through a time shift in which I have removed the functionality of my physiology from out of the Kali Yuga to some degree, and instead shifted it to the Treta Yuga, the prior Yuga, in which the average lifespan was 1,000 years. Methuselah. Because in that Yuga they performed austerities, tapas, in order to live a long life and pursue yoga. And taking an hour or two soak in a silver hydroperoxide bath with MSM, high-end technology, a lot of devotion to creating this recipe. And initially, I don't have it anymore, but initially I used to have the perception, the refined perception or cognition, that I was going through a time shift. And I imagined it was not unlike that of by way of what I'm trying to explain, or metaphorically, image it as being shifting out of the Kali Yuga and into the Treta Yuga, in which life is different, the style of life is different. You're not in a hurry to get things done. You want to take the time and follow procedure, because I think, each age, each Yuga has its theme. The Kali Yuga is the word, the mantra, Father, I have given them their word, and the word will set them free. But in the Treta Yuga, I think it's devotion to procedure. It's a procedure-oriented yuga in which you follow protocols. Or yaga. Yagya is like a protocol. It's a yagya-oriented yuga, as opposed to the Kali Yuga, which anything goes. Forget about procedure, which is whatever works, Shortcut, shotgun, brutal force, whatever. That's why we live such short lives. We don't care about the consequences. Oh yeah, karma is not on our list of thinking things through. So I think that's what's meant, is
that silver hydroperoxide bathing is a time dilation or a time shift into a prior yuga style of functioning of the physiology. And anyway.